hear me? That's fine. I'm Dimitrios. I'm based in Greece, Athens. And we were here to talk about the perspective that matters, in my opinion, when we actually design our API. And actually, how can we deliver value back by using Hypermedia? So Jacob did a nice presentation, and I will go with a short term, like Hypermedia is a way for the server to tell the client what HTTP request he may want to do in the future. So Hypermedia is actually a fancy name to use for links or forums in media types, like HTML is a media type, and we know the A tag that with an attribute href, it is a link that will get us to a next page, or a form will submit some data to the server. So back to APIs. I have identified during my experience on software development, writing APIs for two circumstances. The one was actually building an API on top of an existing application. So the business, the product, the users were already there with a web interface, and we needed to build an API on top of it. And the second case was when we created a new project. So we started with API first development. There was no UI when we were writing the interfaces. And we hear a lot in this conference that API is about hiding complexity. And that's what I faced when I applied API first development. I was worried about the complexity. I was what I call in a problem solving mode. I was minded about what data structures to use, how to be performant and clean code reviews, and I didn't mind so about the design of the API. On the second case, it's when there's an existing application and we want to build an API for probably a new mobile app. I found that developers are in the mentality of thinking in database tables. So we have our entities in some persistence, which looks like this, and eventually we can call an API because we did transfer it into JSON. Thing is that we forget about why sometimes developers forget why they build the API. Some product business are not into the development of APIs, so developers feel like, okay, it's our thing, it's our time, we'll do it. We don't have the product to say, put this there or the other button there. But we forget we create an interface eventually. So we create an interface for a product that's already there, that may exist, or we're building a new product, and we must give value back to the user. Either the user is from a web UI, or either he's consuming the API. In the same terms, like this API is our product and should be treated as a web interface. But what these clients may be like, I've read a book called RESTful Web APIs of Mike Amundsen. Hope I pronounce his name fine. And he has a small chapter that's called Kind of API Clients. And it's derived to two categories. The one, it's called the human-driven client. This actually, we can call the browser human-driven client. What a human-driven client is like, make a request, take the response, present it to the user will take action, and will respond back to the server. It's a mobile app we are building, it's a human-driven client. And then there is the automated clients, that it's actually don't use the human interaction to work. And these automated clients are subcategorized in 4 categories. So the first one is the monitor. It's actually a monitor client can be a script we write to request a specific resource, one specific resource. A monitor client is really passionate about a specific resource. Like, for example, if you are writing a service with exchange rates, it's potentially that monitors will be your most clients. You'll have someone that asking again and again and again over time, what's the USD exchange rate to euro? It may be a script. We all do scripts. We have already, I think everybody here has write scripts to automate the work. It's a process of, we define the process and we consume different APIs to achieve and automate goals like deployment. So we will use the GitHub API along with the AWS API, and we will achieve our goal. Then is the crawler, where everybody, I think, here knows what a crawler is. The crawler starts with a resource and navigates till it's find no other resource at all. So we are familiar with crawlers on the web, and it's currently working and exists out there because the HTML media type supports the hypermedia. It has hypermedia controls like links. So the crawler knows that a tag could make me dive into more. And the fourth type of automated client is the one that's like more excited for me. And it's the agent. Agent is the type of a client that is aware and knows the problem that and the end goal he wants to achieve, and he does it with automated thing. Like, for instance, a lot of people talk about Internet of Things, and for instance, a smart refrigerator we saw previous in a presentation, he can determine that you are run out of milk, hit some APIs of stores and make an order for you and say, okay, I found this type of milk, this is in a discount, and this is the regular one you take, which one you choose. So it's a small prompt to the user to acknowledge and do the action. And so, about a year ago, there was this movie called Her. Who has seen these movies? That's this movie? All right, cool. So this movie is all about a love story about a human and an operating system. The operating system is called Samantha. It's an artificial intelligence system. And while I was watching the movie, I thought that this is an agent. This is actually more than an agent. And he can see the web as we see it with web interface through APIs. So I thought, all right, can we get into Samantha's shoes and see how actually the APIs are currently now, and how is the value of these APIs, and how, if everything is fine, so we can move into this thing. So I thought, when someone is in love, you usually share music. At least that's what I do. So my favorite service is like SoundCloud. So I started like, okay, I want to find some new music to share through their API. So I went to appsoundcloud.com. There are some common API searches, functionalities, services. So I found ip.soundcloud.com. So I made a GET request. There was a really unfortunate event that get back a 404. So in this case, an agent getting back a 404, the next thing he's going to do is like turn his back and go away. He won't search about your documentation, he won't mind. So let's say like there is so much artificial intelligence that he can pass your documentation or realize that the actual URL is /tracks. That's actually what I tried to describe before, like thinking in design APIs, like thinking in database tables. What's the table to put under / or home? There's no table like this. Okay, so we have tracks. So in tracks we see that's actually is an array, and keep note on this. The response has an array and has this kind of, it's an application JSON, simple media type, too much generic. And there are 19 more tracks, and this is the main information. So we have the user, that's another URL. JSON media type doesn't define that URI word, or beneath user you will find a URL like HTML does. The JSON media type is generic. So let's say that Samantha was able to actually parse the values and identify that this actually is a URL and try to follow it. She would end up in something like this, which is actually, at this time, is an object. Before it was an array, now it's an object. And there's nothing more we can do from here. We just know the current user, the URL we hit. So actually, SoundCloud.com for an agent has like 20 tracks. All someone can discover is like 20 tracks. There is no pagination in headers or in the body. So the API does not deliver back the value of the service actually. The service, there are millions of songs, independent artists. So how can we do? How can we give back the value, remove the inconsistencies? Like in the beginning I had an array, now I have an object. So there are media types. I picked up the JSON API media type, and this is what you add to on the accept header. And actually, it's plus JSON in the end determines that it extends JSON, so it's something more than JSON. And this is where the restrictions start to come and define and say that stuff like, we'll see, stuff like this. So a restriction is like everything is the response is everything is an object. You can return an array. So the consistency start to remove in the first level. There are other restrictions like, does this work? All right. So data is, you can add data as a flag to contain a collection of stuff. You can add your own, but data is is like a wildcard that you would find. There are other like meta. So inside there is href is again something that the spec define, that href means, and the client knows that it's means an h reference to this, to move to this resource. Type is also a restriction. It says that type tracks, and if you follow this link, tracks will be this one, this part. So what we did here, actually, we don't, SoundCloud, I think they don't have a resource like that derives music to categories. Like, probably they don't have a database table for this, I don't know. So what we did is actually we used this wildcard, we added some href to actually filter some tracks. And here we go. So we pick one of, Samantha could pick one of these, move further in. So again, an object, the consistency. There's these tracks, and then we have an array with more. We could add pagination in a meta that's again reserved for this media type, but I prefer to use the link header to add next or previous to do pagination, so I don't add it here. So links again is a specific spec attribute in JSON. It means that this links to this stuff. So there's a relation, and the relation is the owner, which again has an ID, type users, href. Now the thing is that we can add more stuff and bring up the value of the service. For example, similar. So we can find similar songs, or recommended, you name it. So we can follow now the user to get to see what the user has. Same here, users, object always. links, tracks, likes. I think that's it. Keep in touch. Make sure you see the movie. There are other media types. I just picked one for convenience. It's easy to illustrate and simple. So that was for me.
Great.